Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Whew. You'll probably have noticed that I did not put out an episode last week, and this was because I was taking time for myself, kind of nurturing myself in the void of everything that had come in through ceremony, and just allowing that, really, because ultimately sometimes the mind doesn't want to allow the space for the integration to happen. So in this episode, I'm going to explain all the beautiful gifts and synchronicities that came and led up into that ceremony and then the experience itself, and all the downloads, all the things that happened for me, as well as my reflections of what was happening around me. And I hope you enjoy it. I will start by saying I've been to a lot of ceremonies, and this ceremony with plant sound immersion is the most blown open experience that I've had, and also just the most beautifully nurturing experience that I've had in ceremony. And I want to say that up front so that you guys all get excited, because there's some magic definitely moving through these women. And honestly, I feel just honored to be in the presence, or allowed to be in the presence of these deep ancestral traditions that are so sacred and so nurtured and so cultivated, that being plopped right there in the middle of this magic was like, OMG. I feel that way really with most ceremonies, but in the case of the Santa Daime and the plant sound immersion experience, it was like definitely ratcheted up an octave. So I'm going to start from the beginning, and you guys know that going into ceremony, you start to get signs of what you're going to be working with. And in that part for me, I started to pull back into my own experience, started to let go of social interaction, and just got quieter and quieter in my own space so that I could feel into and tune into what it was that I was being called to ceremony to work on this time. So I first want to touch on those points, because they always, what you see in your reality is actually what you're ready to work with. So in my case, and in the last episode, I talked about, actually the last few episodes, I think I've talked about the experience I've been going through with my only sibling, and how that was being reflected to me because I hadn't fixed it. If fixing is even a thing, because I know it's not. And so it in the spiral came back to me through another person, the same kind of story, which was that I am here to share my heart and soul, and yet there are people that are in my experience that take offense to that. So as that came up, reflected in someone else's experience with me, I was reminded that actually this had happened before, and it was with my brother. So one evening I was at dinner with my mom and Richard, and it felt like all of a sudden their higher selves were speaking both in unison through their bodies to me about this experience. And they were I felt like tag teaming, and I was a little bit defensive, and I felt like it's a lot. But then I also took a higher perspective to see that, is this my medicine? And essentially what they were talking about was that in this life, if we hold a larger perspective, can we have compassion and honor the process that the other person is going through? And I always do. And I feel like I do. And I feel like I hold space. But their argument was, if that is the truth, then can you still reach out and nurture this person even though they don't want you in their lives? And that was a sticky one for me. It was like, oh, I know this wouldn't be coming up if it wasn't something that I was supposed to see, but I'm also very aware that I've created, the door is open. I've like numerous times said, whenever you're ready to speak, I'm here for it. And I would love to do that with you. But their response to me was, what if he's not even able to get to the point where he could see himself speaking about this? What if that, like, could you, if you look at it from that perspective and he can't even go there with words, how do you nurture someone? Could you like send him a message just letting him know that you love him and you miss him, and whenever he's ready to start anew? So this was all coming at me as literally the days before ceremony. So I knew this is and it's hard. Okay, I'm going to first say, it's much harder when it's that close of a relationship to accept the signs that you get. Because I was like, but I've already done that. And he doesn't want to interact with me. I've already tried. And that's my ego saying, I've done that. I can't do anymore. But the truth is, like, obviously it was coming up and being bubbled up to the surface for me to do more. So I think like 2 days before ceremony, I was on my walk in nature and I decided, I'm going to let Penny decide. I'm going to let Penny show me if I need to do more. So we have this path that we go down and it splits. And if she goes to the left, we go up on the rocks and go through the rocks and then down this hill. And if she goes to the right, we kind of bypass the rocks. So in my mind, I was like, okay, if Penny goes to the left, that means we're going to go by the rocks and I will sit down and I will tune into this and I will express my heart to him from that space. Well, usually she always goes to the right. So I'm thinking she's probably not going to go to the left. We'll see. But sure enough, she goes to the left. And I know, okay, I'm going to dig deep into my emotions and feel into what is the right thing to say at this time. And knowing that the energy is only ours to put out. It's not complete only when the person replies. If you get what I'm saying. My side of it is all in the give. It doesn't matter what happens after that. So knowing that and knowing that I have no clue where he is in his own process, I have to just own my side of it. So we get up on the rocks, I sit down and I really tune into what can I say authentically that feels right for me based on the lesson that I had just learned in that reflection from another, and applying it to this relationship that is, a much more intensely close relationship in my life. So I send a message, I write it out, I release it, I send it, and we go on our way. Now, in that send, like I said, I knew it probably isn't ready to be received. And I don't think that's the point. And I kind of knew going into ceremony that wouldn't be the point. The point is, can I drop my anchor of, I already tried. I already did this. Why would I do it again? That's the talking myself out of the love. And so I had to release it and understanding that when and if it ever is able to be received, it will be, and hopefully with grace. But at this point, it was just my own work to go through and let go of and release that moment. So then another thing that had come up that week was a friend of mine in the Energy Tribe had watched the episode that I did with Faith Diver. And she wrote me this message that said, I'm in the middle of listening to this podcast. It's so beautiful, such a conscious conversation of Faith's spiritual journey. It is like Gabrielle is midwifing Faith through the rebirth of who she really is and supporting her in the process of sharing her voice in regards to her spiritual journey, which is no easy task. I am literally imagining a birthing scene of sorts where G is the midwife and Faith is birthing. And I took a screenshot of that because it's the first time I've connected this word with what I do. I know I'm here to help people on their journeys, but I never associated that word with it. And all of a sudden it felt like, yes, that is what I do. That is the purpose of sharing my heart and putting it out there. And I wrote myself some little notes here, which I put, midwife the nectar. When I was working with Faith and finding her what needed to be expressed and what was ready to be expressed or bloomed open in her, I kept saying to Richard, like, this is the nectar. This is everything of a person. And it felt like I was opening up and like letting that, like taking that nectar and letting it like start to pollinate into the world. And that's what I wanted to do. So then it connected with this thread that I've been carrying for a while, and I'm not sure if I shared this, so I'm gonna, if this is new, after I shared the Angelic Pearls 144 book with you all, Zanita came into my life, and through working with her, I know that I am here to be a Pearl Code teacher. And, I'm already doing it, but I now know like the lineage behind what I'm doing, which is, it's just getting a wider perspective. Like I've done this many lifetimes. That's why it comes naturally to me. That's why I feel like the stories are the juice. It's not just me like rattling off like spiritual terms and how to do something, because I don't think that each one of us are going to do it so differently. I'm just expressing how it looks like in my life so that you can see when it comes up in yours. This is it. I know this thread and I know how to navigate it. So, yes. So when my friend brought in this midwifing, I was like, yes, that feels very organic to me. And, so that was another thread that I was like pulling in and kind of working with and through, knowing that this ceremony that we were going into was in the light of the day. And when I've done ayahuasca ceremonies in the past, so I think when we call a ceremony, usually a ceremony has two separate nights that's associated with that ceremony. So 2 different drinks within that container. So I've had, I'm going to say 20 sessions with ayahuasca, meaning I've partaked in ayahuasca 20 times, which would be, let's say, 10 ceremonies. And in all of them, they've been in the dark. And I remember my very first time with ayahuasca, sitting up and being in the process and looking around and seeing that most people were on their mats, in their cocoon, underneath their blanket, like going deep in their own shadow work or essence, because that's what ayahuasca shows you is what you are. And I remember getting this very clear message, like that it's okay, they're in the cocoon phase and everything is perfect. So knowing that I had been in my own cocoon phase through all of those 20 evenings of medicine, and knowing that we were going into a light ceremony, meaning that yes, there would be beds provided or mats that you could go that way, but I also was going to get the opportunity to be awake and out there. So I kind of, and I think I talked about this last week, like what's going to move through me in this open, like light of day experience. So I was bringing that into my equation and kind of like preparing myself to like all of the little distractions in my life, like making sure everything here was taken care of so that I could let go completely into the container of bringing in 3 friends came from out of town. So when I picked them all up at the airport, like allowing that to create a new container for this healing to happen for all of us. So as I was going and getting prepared to do that with them, the messages already started arriving, or the synchronicities. The first was with one of my friends, actually Faith was one of them. On her way to the airport, she had to leave her house like at 5 a.m. She's sleepy. She gets to the airport, and you know how the Lyft driver sends you the receipt with your how much it costs. Well, it said, "Thank you for driving with Gabrielle." So she sent that in the group chat and was like, the signs are already here. And I'm like, yes, I love it. I love it. And I'm here for it. And then another friend of mine was driving to the airport, and she took 3 photos of license plates that she was behind on her way to the airport. And the first one was 444 MMN. And to me, when I saw that, the 444s surround me. So definitely are my numbers. And MMN to me feels like where I originated from, which I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I am originally from Minnesota. And it felt very grounding into me, and all I can do is take a reflection of what these people are sharing with me and what comes up, what does it bring up for me. And then the second one she sent was one that's a red car, and it's the license plate says red, RED, PRL, so red pearl. And she's like, I'm not sure what this means, but I know it's meant for us, because we know that we're learning the pearl mysteries. We know that the essence, the center is the pearl. And what is red? We don't know yet, but she took a picture and sent that one. And then the last one she sent was this big truck. It's a 4x4 white truck, and the license plate says 144, and it has a cross in the back window. And she's like, if this car is not signs, like, I don't know what it is. So she got 3 signs on the way to her trip. So then they all arrive, and it so happened that on this day, Leia, who's my sister from Joshua Tree, was offering a sound session and healing at the beach. And I was so excited because in them coming here, I was like, how can we get to Joshua Tree? Maybe on the last day they're here, we can drive up there so that they can share in her energy. But no, she came to us and created this magical experience for us. And two of us, not me, two of the women that flew in at the end of the session went into the water and received that energy from the water and releasing of what was ready to move through. Also in that session, we were able to do the Egyptian eye gazing, which was super powerful and such a beautiful experience. The other thing in that sound session is we were all sitting there right before it started, and her sound bowls are all laid out in front of her. And up comes this cute little girl in a bikini, and we're talking to her, and she walks right over to us. She grabs a rock from the sand and drops it into the solar plexus bowl, and it crashes, like breaks. And we're just like sitting there like, did that just happen? And the dad comes running up behind her, and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Can I Venmo you for that? And Leia's like, sure, brother, if that's what you feel called to do. And he says, like, how much can I give you? And she says, whatever you feel is the right donation. And I remember in that moment feeling like, do people know what sound bowls cost? Like, he's clearly not into this kind of thing. And the grace that Leia had in that moment as one of her beautiful treasures is destroyed in front of her. And then he ends up Venmoing her an amount that is nowhere near the cost of the bowl. But she took it as like, this was for my medicine. She brought up like how she's working through something with a relationship that is how would I say, like here now, gone, here and gone, like, and she needed to reclaim her power of the solar plexus. And she took it as a message, which, I mean, in everything that happens, no matter if it's high or low and devastating, what is the message, like what is happening in this moment? And can I take my mourning of this beautiful bowl and let it go and just say whatever you feel, such grace this woman holds. And to me, just such a beautiful mentor to look up to. Oh, one more thing I forgot before we get into the ceremony part, we're not even at ceremony yet. The weekend before ceremony, my mom is on Facebook, and we have this town Facebook group where she sends me a picture of this woman that's having a garage sale, and it's all crystals. And we're like, what? So I'm like, okay, we're getting up at 6 and we're going first thing in the morning. We want to be first in line for these crystals. So we get there, and I mean, it turns out that this woman that's having, or the family that's having the garage sale, her mother had recently passed, and her mother was a collector of crystals. And I'm not like, she could have had her own store. That's how many crystals she had. Of like, let's say she collected elephants. She had every crystal in elephants, for example, or like everything that you could think of, this woman had. And we're like, oh my God, does she know like how much these things are? And she ends up that she, sorry, my computer just went to sleep. I don't know. Hopefully we're still recording. She was basically giving them away. So here I was able to get, I don't even know, let's say 30 to 40 crystals and 5 rings and one necklace and some other things for, I think I spent $200. And I'm just like, oh my God, like the amount of gifting that came through this woman. And I'm so grateful, so grateful. And my mom also collected a bunch of them. And we were just like, oh my God. So I knew in that give that one of them was going to be a talisman in my journey, which is this ring that I'm wearing right now, which is called kombucha jasper. Now, my history with this stone is I had never heard of it, but my best friend got me a piece of it, a big palm stone, and it was one that she said was calling for me, and so I have that. But I knew Maureen's not here, so I want her energy with me. And then also it's very earthy, very grounding. And I know I can get a little too cosmic in my own experience. So I was like, yes. So that's my first talisman came in. Okay. So before we get to the sound session on the beach, we go to my favorite, spiritual bookstore, and there everybody, starts it's amazing. And we're checking out, and one of my friends who hadn't bought this deck yet, which I talked about in the Mystery School Tools, which is the Wild Harmonic Oracle, and one of my friends hadn't bought it yet, and they had it, so she was like, "I'm buying this. Finally, it's in my path, and I'm ready for it." And we're at the cash register, and I start talking. Oh, the woman says, "Oh, my friend made this deck." And I go, "What?" She goes, "Oh yeah, he used to work here. He used to live here. And he was already working on this deck. This is years ago. He used to work here. His mom lives in town, and he since has moved up Northern California. But yeah, he's going to be so," I was like, "Oh, wait a minute." So then I go into this whole thing about how, do you know the mystery school involved with this deck? And she's like, "I know he's created iterations and that he's been building it along throughout the years." And I'm just like, wow. And she goes, "You know what? I have a first edition that I'm going to give you." And I was like, "Shut up." And she goes, "No, I think it's for you." So she goes into the back, and she comes back with this little tin that is full of the first edition that he created before he had a publisher, of all the same cards. They're just smaller, and instead of it being a book, there's round cards that have all of the definitions on them. Oh, here they are. So all of the definitions are on these cards, and I know you can't see them. There we go. And I'm just like, oh. And that's where the magic started for me. I was like, I cannot believe that just happened. I cannot. She's like, "What's your name? I'm going to tell him his biggest fan came in today." And I was like, oh, I've already emailed him. Because whenever I feel something this intensely, I have to give back. There always has to be an equal exchange. And when something fills my heart like this, I wrote him, and I think I talked about that and told him, like, "Oh my God, I don't know if you meant this to be a mystery school, but I see it and I'm here for it." And yes, so that was the first magic that came in. Then we go to the sound session, and that was a beautiful, beautiful experience. But I didn't go in the water because I'm terrified of cold. Like, I am always a cold being, and especially in this particular night, I was already cold and I just wasn't into it. But some of my friends went in and they loved it, and it was beautiful. So then we go home, and I decided the way we were going to sleep in my house was in my room. I put out all these futons, and so that we can all be in one room together to start our collective energy as we were growing into the ceremony space. And it was like perfect. It was perfect. Like, me and one other, we talked a little bit through the night, and it just felt like ceremony is like this combining of threads that weave together, and that when you are in the space, you are holding each other so deeply that no one's gonna fall, like no one's gonna be left behind, and it just creates this kind of webbing. And I knew that I wanted to start that with them before we went together into this container. So then the next day, my sisters, I'm gonna call them now going forward, they each brought talismans for us in this experience, and I want to share those with you because they ended up being perfect. So first was my baby G. She's our feral black cat. She and I have a love, and sometimes she hates me relationship, but I always love her. She lets me hold her, but only she wants me to pick her up and put her into her food. They have their food on this kind of cat tree. So she always comes to me to pick her up, to put her up there, because she wants me to hold her and pet her while she's eating, and she purrs. But I decided, it was the day before leaving for ceremony, and I decided up in my bathroom I was going to hold her because I was going to miss her. So I pick her up and she does not want it. And so she scratches me, and it's almost healed now, but I have this big scratch on my left hand, which I knew, okay, she wants me to receive her in some way, and I'm going to hold that and sit with it to see what's coming, because she's never scratched me before. So yeah, that was my first talisman that came in. And then through my friends, Mina brought in this beautiful bracelet, which for each of us, she gave us each a different one. And then she also brought in this smoky quartz anklet, which I needed because, I'm all about protection. So I put that right away on my left ankle. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to insert a picture of the bracelet here. And then Brandy, my friend Brandy, made us, her sister has peacocks, and she had been collecting peacock feathers, and she knew, like, a couple weeks before coming to ceremony what she wanted to do with them. She made us each a peacock fan, and had like stories behind each one, and mine has lapis on it. And my friend Mina gave me a chrysocolla bracelet as well, and I added it to this fan right here. And each one of us received a different version of this beautiful fan. And then my friend Faith, so she has many stories that, as I've like filtered into her threads and in her life, every single time she sees rainbows, some kind of rainbow will come through in a very dynamic way. And so if you can see right back here, she gave me this beautiful rainbow candle. And I feel like it's also just such a beautiful gift to share with you guys. So I wanted to light it first here for this beautiful share, and know that as I went into ceremony, I knew I had a lot of support around me. Right before anything happened, like all of these things were coming in as like beautiful gifts to hold us. Okay, so we head to ceremony, and the first experience was just the introduction and arrivals. And we arrived to this place in the mountains, and it's just gorgeous. The house is gorgeous. The space feels good, like just magical. I think it's 16 acres, and there's like all these different paths that you can go down and experience nature. And it's just an open vessel for healing. And we have our introduction talk and what's going to happen and what to expect, and all of this stuff coming into that first evening. And it was beautiful, like seeing everybody there, really cool, all good. So then we had decided to get an Airbnb while we were up there, and mainly because the option was to camp, like in a tent, or if you had a place to stay nearby, so we had decided to get an Airbnb, which in hindsight, I kind of wish we didn't, but that was a lesson that I think we needed to have. So we were after dinner, we were going to go go to the Airbnb, and there was someone parked right behind me. I had parked so that I could get out easily. It's, behind everybody else, but someone came late and someone parked directly behind me. So we had to go find her to move her car so that we could leave. So this brings in Ginger, and I didn't meet her that night, but it turns out it's her car behind us, and I'm introducing her in here because it all tied together in the end. So Faith goes and finds her. She moves her car. We get out. We leave. Okay. The next morning, we are being asked to be there by, I think it was 4:40 a.m. for a sunrise work, which the works in Santa Daime are the partaking with ayahuasca, and they don't use the term Icaros, but they sing songs to bring in energies to do the work. And they had let us know that Saturday was going to be a light day, and that we were just going to take a small amount, because she asked everybody, raise your hand if you haven't done ayahuasca before. And I would say 75% of the people there, it was their first time. So I thought, that's a great idea. You're going into this experience little by little, instead of blowing people away the first day and then they, it's too overwhelming. So, yes, so we did this at 5 a.m. We ingested the first little bit of ayahuasca, which in the Santa Daime brew was actually not bad. Like, I've had some that are very potent and very difficult to take down. The consistency was a tea consistency. It had a sweetness to it, and it was definitely, really the best tasting that I've ever drinking before. And then we had a lunch. Oh, so in that ceremony, what I remember is that I didn't let go. I was very in the medicine, but also very present and making sure that everybody was okay, which I know that's my own issue and my own, I don't even know, wanting to make sure the container was safe. The reason, though, is because right when ceremony opened, the facilitators opened their bodies to become a form of a medium, which it means that, and I think I might have talked about this in the last episode, they let spirits actually move into the body and move around and speak, and it seemed pretty intense right off the get-go, and I was like, okay, this is new, and I need to be in the medicine, but I also need to be aware of what's happening. And so I felt very like calm, still, steady, and just like observant. That's how I felt in that first work. And then we had lunch, and then we had there was a woman that was part of the ceremony that I would call her like an herbologist, and I don't know the official term that she used. Her name is Yaya, and she taught us how, firstly, she brought in this tea that she cultivated from her land, and went into the details behind each. I think it was oat straw tea, and the magic that she infused in that tea, and then we each had a glass of it. It was beautiful. And then after lunch, she did this medicine ball teaching, which was like combining all of these different herbs. And actually, Faith took notes, so I will share the herbs that were put into this mix. But essentially, I remember there was cinnamon, cardamom, cacao, ginger, and some, I don't remember all of them, but like all of these grinded to powders into this bowl, and kind of mixed, and then organic honey put in to make it into this kind of consistency of a dough. And I will insert a picture here of what the final product looks like, but I don't have it right here. But it looks like, because it has cacao, it's like the color of cacao, and it's like a mound of clay, it looks like. But you just take tiny pieces off of it and ingest it. And it's basically a heart opener, an energy booster, and just a nurturance of your soul. And imagine, like, I've been making date balls. It's similar to that idea, but with all of these different spices. And I overheard some people saying that they would use it as a tea. So taking a little bit off and putting it into hot water and making it into a tea elixir, or adding it to cacao and having it, all those flavors like open up in that way. So there are many ways to ingest this medicine ball, but it was such a beautiful, interesting experience. And then we had a breathwork ceremony, and that felt like, because we had that ceremony in the morning, I used that as a moment to just let go and kind of rest. And I was there, like, doing the breathing, but not going deep with it. I felt like I was just wanting to rest. And Judea comes around, she was doing healing and helping each person. But for me, she grabs some, I had my eyes closed, but all of a sudden there's something right here on my 8th chakra, and it's the sonic slider, but it's not the sonic slider. And I open my eyes, and because I feel the vibration, and I'm like, you know about the sonic slider? And she's like, what? And hers has this blue head. So it's not the sonic slider, but yes, she knows all about it. And it was like, opening it up. And I just felt like, oh, yes, because I didn't bring my sonic slider. However, Faith did, and she was using it the whole time. And then after that, we had a sound bath with Jude, and we also got to do a microdose of ayahuasca, ayahuasca, it just is like, in that first day, it was very much just training the body to start being in the vibration of the medicine, which is a way higher vibration than our normal everyday experience. And the microdose, again, wasn't that it blasted you off. It was just vibing into the frequency of the medicine. And then experiencing it with the sound bath was amazing and beautiful. And then we had dinner that night. And then again, we went back to the Airbnb. So, oh wait, I forgot one point. When we arrived Saturday morning at 4:30 in the morning, we had put the first day we kind of each had selected our spots in the circle. And someone had put their stuff, like their blankets and stuff, on the seat that I was sitting on. And then it doesn't matter, but the reason why I wanted it mattered was that we 4 were trying to sit together, and nowhere else in the circle were there 4 chairs together except those 4 chairs. So I was like, oh my goodness. I got a little bit of a panic came over me, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this is saying I'm not meant to sit with them, or, I don't know what's happening. And then I turn around, and there's Ginger, the one that was behind us, but I didn't meet that first night. And I turn around, and she's like, oh, that's my stuff. I'm going to move it. And she picked all of her stuff, and she's like, I'm sitting on that side, but let me get my stuff out of your way. And I remember being like, oh, like so grateful that she was allowing me to still be in the container with these 4 women. But also, I had the wherewithal to introduce myself and just be like so grateful for her. Okay, so that happened. That was in the very early part of the day. So now we leave for the night again, and they tell us that Sunday is going to be the big work. Like, this is going to be the big day. And we had to be there by 7 a.m. If we were going to do combo. Which combo is a frog medicine that's an Amazonian practice that they scrape the venom off of the back of a frog, and in this indigenous cultures, this was their health care. They didn't have doctors to see, or so if anything happened to you that needed help, in the case of the story that we heard, it was that her name is Ceres, and she had skin issues, and they used combo to heal her skin issues. And sure enough, it did. And for example, she also had like other things happen throughout her life that she lived in the jungle. This is the only way that they could heal it. So I have never done combo before. It's come up in my sphere, and I've definitely known about it, but I just never felt called to it. But in the case that it was being offered here by Ceres, who's an indigenous woman who's grown up in this tradition and knows exactly what to do, I was like, I think I'm ready to experience it. So what it is it as the medicine goes into your body, and the way it gets into your body is they burn these points into your skin, and they put the medicine on top of the points, which I will insert what mine looks like now here. So as that medicine is going in, it's basically moving up your nervous system, scanning your whole nervous system, and then going back down, and whatever isn't in resonance with that vibration, you will purge. Some people fainted, some people would cry, some people turned bright red, some people turned gray. Because it turned out I was the last person to get it. They started on the opposite side of the circle and it went all the way around, and I was the second to last. So when it was my turn, I had seen all these stories happen in front of me, and it was all over the place. Some people had no effect. Some people literally fainted. Some people cried. Some people, like I said, turned red. So as it got into me and it was my turn, I, was ready for it, whatever it was going to be in my body, because I know you can't judge any of these medicines off of someone else's experience. You have to feel it for yourself. So as it came to me, one second. I for some reason I thought the burning part was going to be difficult. It's not. And she described it. It's like plucking a hair. And I would say that is the perfect way to describe this burning sensation. It's not, it doesn't hurt at all. So then she put the medicine on, and what I felt is this heat start to move up from my root chakra and move up through all of my chakras. And then as it got to around the heart center, my heart started exploding. It was boom, boom. I've never felt my heart like this before, but it's booming so intensely. If you could see me, I felt my heart was out of my chest, and the heat just started rising. And then it got to my ears, and it's boom, boom, boom. And it got all the way up to the top of my head. And then as it reached the top, they told us just breathe with it, just keep breathing. So I'm breathing as this, it was boom, 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 boom. And then as it got to the top, I noticed that it kind of, started pulling back the intensity. And then I felt it go down my chakras, and then it stayed in my sacral or my stomach area. And it felt I'm going to say the word burning, but it wasn't burning. It was almost like a heat in the pit of my stomach. And I just was whew, okay. So then I'm catching my breath, and I'm looking around, and I'm oh, okay, maybe that must be it. I don't feel like I need to purge anything, and I don't feel like I need to faint. So I'm just sitting there kind of oh, okay. And then as I think I'm done with it, the second wave started scanning back up and up and up. And I was okay. So then it's boom, 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 as it's moving up, 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 and then falling back down. And then again, it goes back down into my sacral. And there's this heat in my sacral. And I'm thinking maybe. And so I grab my bucket and I get ready, because maybe this is going to be a purge, I don't know. And, it kind of subsides again, and no, there wasn't a purge for me. And it was just this intense scanning. And I have heard that if you don't have a reaction of throwing up, or, fainting or whatever, that it's working internally, and that it is still working. It's just that your body's not ready to expel anything at this point. So it felt like being scanned and cleaned from head to toe twice. And I was okay. So that was really interesting. And I'm so glad that I did it, because it's something I've never experienced before. And also in a gentle way, because I felt such heat and fire moving through my whole system. So yes, that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then the actual work was starting, I believe we started at 10 o'clock. And this time we were, told this is going to be a much deeper experience, meaning that the dosage of ayahuasca was going to be more. I mean, you could say I want more or less. It didn't matter. You could say what you wanted, but in general, it was going to be a deeper experience. So, this is what I live for. So I'm okay, So we get in, we kind of went in a circle to receive the ayahuasca. And when it got to my turn, I was like, I'm ready to go deep. And I think I might have, I don't actually know, the first round I didn't say how much I wanted, but it was imagine a shot glass cup, and it was probably like a whole shot glass size. That's about how much you drink. And I sit down, and I think I was like one of the last people to be served. And I sit down, and they start the songs, and within 5 minutes, there was one of the facilitators was embodied. Like she embodied, I would say it's one of her guides or one of her higher selves, but he's a medicine man. And I don't know, I felt it very masculine. I don't know if it is masculine, but I saw her, because she was sitting near me, put a scarf around her neck, and she stood up and grabbed the scarf, tied it around her forehead, and started moving around the circle. Like in a way, it felt like opening it up and like checking in with all the energies that were there, and speaking and like moving around, talking to some people, laying hands on some people, like doing healing works on some people. And it felt like, because for me in ayahuasca, it takes longer to set on. And I don't know if I've talked about this. Usually with my normal shaman, I don't get into the medicine experience until ceremony's closed. And then it's like, boom, it opens up. So 5 minutes in, I'm like, whoa, whoa. And now I feel like, look, I know that it's the songs that turn the medicine on, but because they're deep in this lineage, I think one song for them and they're in the medicine so quickly. And someone said that this particular person didn't even take a very high dosage. So it becomes like this kind of nuanced working with the energy that the moment you're saying, I'm open and I'm ready to receive, she was in it. And I remember sitting there like, holy shit, like, what if I don't experience any of this, because it takes me hours to get into there, But as I was thinking that, I was like, you know what to do. Just listen to the music. The music is like everything. And it was all songs that, of course, I've never heard before, because this is a Brazilian. They're all in Portuguese, and this is through the Santa Daime lineage. So I had never heard any of these songs before. But just all I was doing was tuning into the vibration, and then feeling the that's usually for me how I get into the medicine. Also, there was drumming and guitar, and just like allowing those sounds to move through my body. And I would say within a half an hour, I was in it. And for me, in this case, because we're all sitting there in the circle, like I said, you could lay down if you wanted to, but in general, they were like, if you can, sit up and be present in the circle. So I'm sitting there, and I feel my higher self drop in, and I'm like, okay. So I know at that point what happens physically is, as my higher self drops in, my hands were like this, like so much energy was moving through my body. They're like spread open and just like, and I start to feel the music. Like I start to move with the music, and I'm like, first I think I did like some healing on my body, and I'm like moving energy around me. And then like, as I'm going deeper into the experience, like every song carries a different vibration. So depending on the song would be how my body would move. But essentially, it eventually goes to where I am moving energy around the room and like just feeling it, just totally feeling it. My eyes would flow hit to the back of my head. And what I was told in that was that this is the first time you've done this in daylight. We want to see. And when I would do that, I would see all these eyes, because when you roll your eyes back, you see nothing, right? But all these eyes came forward and wanted to see and experience the ceremony with me. And, for me, that's the seraphim, that's the Ophium, that's me. So I allowed, and just like most of the time, I wasn't looking with my human eyes. I was looking with my, I don't know what I would call them, my many eyes, So as what I know of myself is that I'm here to record everything, and I know I always in ceremony I see eyes, but usually they're looking at me. This time they were like, okay, now you know who we are. Let's open up and let us all. And as I did that, Jesus came down and Jesus was looking through me, and just allowing that, like, being this kind of open channel to move these, they're not even spirits for me. It's just a vibrational light. And it's like, okay, see how I just did that? Like catching my breath. I had to do that a lot because it's so much energy moving through this vessel. And like the entire time my hands were as spread out as much as they could, like, almost like rigor mortis. Like I just was like moving the energy around the room through me. Like I would try to stay in my own experience and not like, see what the one next to me's were doing. But, it so happened that next to me was one of the people in the that were hosting us, and she is in the church, and she was one of the singers. So, and also one of the people that were caretaking. So that's who was on my right, and on my left was my friend Brandy. So I was just like, moving it around, and it felt like it went on for hours. I don't even know anymore. And then at one point they stood up and said, okay, we're ready to go into our next phase. Everybody line up. And I was like, what? We're doing this again? Yay! Because I'm thinking like so much time has passed that they're going to say circles closed. Let's call it back in. And to me, in a ceremony, it's like, oh, imagine allowing all of your essence into this vessel, and it feels like such a time of play. And the last time I had felt this was when I was in Costa Rica, and I allowed all of my spirit animals in my body, and they were like so curious and exploring everything. And and I've had my higher self come down before, but in the dark, and do a lot of healing on my body. This was like, now I can play and be awake in the energy. And I also got this message that the reason this is even possible is because I have cracked open my chrysalis. I'm out of the cocoon phase, and now I am ready to be in the light of day. And so I was like, good, that means I'm not going to get sick. I'm not here to work on any, like, all the stuff that I had purged and that I talked about at the beginning of this episode. I did the work. I released the things. I did all the signs. Everything. I went through that eclipse portal, heart open and ready to act, not just like get the message, but actually act on those messages. So in this case, I know now all of those things were moving through me before ceremony, so that in ceremony, I could be as light as possible. So we line up to get into the second serving, and I told her that I wanted to go deep, and she was like, okay. So she pours me like a full cup again, a full, like I said, I think it's about a shot glass full of the tea. And I'm thinking, like, remember, I had this in the back of my head that I know I help move spirits' energies. And I thought, like, maybe I'm going to see that, and maybe I'm going to experience what that is. Again, not having any idea, just being like, I want to be open for whatever it is. And let's see. So I sit back down, and it's just more of the same. But at this time now, people are pretty deep in the work, and people are going through their own experiences. So the healers that are holding the space are helping certain individuals, and I can feel like some people are having releases, like and like moving, like a lot of throat opening happens. So people would be like riding the wave of the vibration and then allowing it to move and open that throat. And some people were like singing, and some people were just like crying. Some people were like in the cocoon phase. Some people, were dancing. So like it was all over the place, but in the most beautiful way. Like, this is why I feel like this is the most impactful ceremony that I've been to, because in the light of day, it's not shameful. Like, everything was held with such grace and such like compassion no matter where the person was. Like I could have gotten up, jumped up and danced around, like, and everyone would have been perfectly fine with it. That's how it felt. Like you can let it go here. Like other people were embodying, let's say denser souls that are part of their lineage and allowing them to see the light of day. And even in that, it was beautiful because everything was allowed. There was no like, this is too much, put that back in the box kind of thing. And seeing that with the facilitators, right from the get-go, the facilitators set the stage of, look, this is how deep you can go and it's not going to be judged. And I think allowing that really let people feel like, look, okay, no matter what comes out of me, it's going to be held. So I don't have to be afraid to let my hair down and let it go. Because of that, I knew that whatever was going to move through any of us was going to be held. And that had like such a freeing experience because in the lineage that I've practiced this before is in the Peruvian lineage, which is you stay on your mat, you don't disrupt others. Like, of course, if you're crying, you cry as silently as you can, for example. I remember when I was in Costa Rica, someone started laughing and that was shh, because you don't want to affect other people's stories and what they're working on. But in this container, it was like, let it go, just let it go. And it's all welcomed. And we'll, if you need more assistance, they came for it and they were assisting that person. But in general, it was like, it's safe here. So imagine if all of your 12 selves embody, and this is what I felt, and I can only really go on my experience. Literally, I was integrated, completely integrated. Now, I know I don't carry, I would say my lowest self of my body, of my experience, of my elixir is my human self. So if that's my lowest vibration, the light that was moving through this body was like intense. And where others hold both light and dense. And so there was a mixture of different things coming out, but all of them want to see and be experienced, right? So it was just perfect. Okay, so as we move through this next few hours, the energy, man, like someone else across the room would be going through something and I'd pick up on the thread and I would be like giving eye contact and trying to like show them how to move it through. And I would be like, woo, like, because you can, when you're in that state, you can see how it's like a hive mind. Literally, we all are supporting each other's experience. So one particular woman was having a really hard time allowing the light in, and it presented to look like it was a density, but what I could see is it actually was light, and her vessel was learning how to open and hold it. So and most of the time her eyes were rolled back in her head looking at the light. There was a skylight in the middle of the room, which saved all of us because light is everything. And it happened to be a very overcast day, and it actually rained while we were in the yurt, and it was, even when that happened, the most beautiful cleansing set over the room. But what I'm trying to explain is that you're not in your own process at all. So in my case, my eyes were wide open the entire time or rolled back in my head, but I was in the space, not in my own process until Ceres was outside helping someone. She was the guitar player, and the two singers paused to do an a cappella song, meaning that the vibration of the instruments disappeared. And in that moment, it allowed me to go into my own process. So as she's singing this most beautiful song, and the problem is that it's not like I can go to Spotify and look these songs up, but it was perfect. It felt like it was a message directly to me. And I remember, I think I closed my eyes because I was in my head, and it was all of these kind of psychedelic rainbow patterns and tapestries moving through my head. And it was like, what I remember of the song was that basically you're exactly where you need to be. Everything needs to open up, and you need to share from that place, and like how special we are as souls, and that we are just here to share the light of our souls. And I remember after that song ended, I was like, oh my God, that was so beautiful. Like I said it out loud because it was like such a break from the like the vibration of the music. And I remember Yana, the facilitator, stopped and it said where the song was from and who wrote it. And I was like, oh, let's just give love, because it was such a beautiful pause in the process that I felt just so deeply grateful for. And then at one point they were like, everybody stand up, because there were so many people that were in the cocoon phase, like in their own process, like in fetal position underneath the blanket. So the energy got built to such a state that we needed to dance it out. So we all stood up and started moving and dancing and shaking it out. And I mean, I could barely stand. So I was like, oh yes. And like move it through. And God, there was just, I mean, I'm just like not able to articulate all that happened in that day. But, oh God, such beauty. And I also want to just say that the beauty is in every part of the process. So the souls that were there for the first time meeting ayahuasca and were down on the floor most of the time in their own story, that's beautiful too. And I just had already 2 years of that. And I remember my last ceremony, which was back in November, which is when I fully embodied, the big message that I had was it's time to assimilate, meaning it's time to wake up, it's time to share, it's time to now live this way. And so the fact they wouldn't let me lay down not once. If I tried to lay back in my chair jack, it was like, nope, right back up. Because I'm not in the cocoon anymore, and I had to be very, like, my posture was very upright and very present. And I know that that's just where I am in my part of the journey, but also seeing how everybody is at a different phase in the journey and just honoring each phase of it felt like, in the light of day, felt perfect. And it felt like it doesn't need to be secret. Like, we can all hold a piece of everyone, you know? So they eventually close the circle and ask all the spirits that have come down to go back and to leave the bodies. And okay, so for me, when I ingest ayahuasca, it's going to be like at least a 12-hour experience, at least. So we had plans to drive back to my house that night, but I didn't realize we were going to go that deep. So I knew there's no way I'm driving home. So I told one of my more sober friends that had a phone that worked that was the other thing. My phone did not work at all on that property. So I just left it in the car the entire weekend. So the friend that had the phone that worked texted my mom and Richard and let them know, like, we're safe, but we're staying here. So we knew, like, okay, we can our beds are like here. This is where we're going to be. And then as I closed the ceremony and everybody kind of started dispersing, because some people had to make the dinner and some people had to do other things. And this became the part of me that stepped forward, which was the midwife. And I was very, very present. I had made sure that I purchased a bunch of like healthy snacks to bring with us, because I know that to ground back in the body, you need nourishment and you need food. And so it turned out like other people brought snacks, but for some reason our snacks were the shared snacks. And we had gone through all the ones I originally bought. So the next day, one of my sisters bought more. And so we had like a whole array of things for people to eat. And so I proceeded to get up and bring snacks to every person and make sure that they were okay. And I have to bring back in Ginger here, because throughout this weekend, actually on Saturday it would have been, she came, I invited her to our side of the tent and to come sit with us and have food with us. And through that, we learned that she's a beekeeper. and that God, she just holds so much wisdom, but not from a spiritual perspective. She intuitively knows how to heal with plants, how to work with the bees, how to she has an orchard on her property, how to actually use the nourishment of each thing. And we would be walking around the property and she'd be like, you see this, smell this is going to give you this. And she was picking snails off of some of the avocado trees and putting them on the ground, and just such a caretaker of earth. And I think all of us could feel what magic she brings. Now, what I could feel also is that she was here and she was the last person to sign up for this retreat and got the last spot. It was the weekend before that she decided to go. And now it was just time to integrate the mind into the process that she's already doing. So there was a lot of talking and explaining the terminology of things and helping her understand no, you already got it. You're already doing it. You just don't know what you're doing. But through us talking that day, we discovered so many things about her that it came out. In one point I was talking about finding your center, and I said, I kept saying, this is just a seed to put into your garden of your heart so that it can grow. And eventually those seeds turn into the rainbows that surround that you, which become the pearl. And she was like, shut up. And I was like, no, it's a pearl. And she's like, my name means red pearl, or no, means blood pearl. And it was only me and Faith sitting there when she said that. And we both look at each other and we're like, oh my God. So we knew Brandy knew she was coming into us before she even came. And she was the red pearl of that license plate that Brandy took the photo of. And we tell her this story and she's like, what? Is it I know a lot of these synchronicities for people are just is that real? But oh my God, it turned out that in this circle, we were missing our fifth. And in these ladies, there's a circle of 5 women, which would include me, and one of us wasn't there. And Ginger filled right in that spot to hold the space for her and became this wisdom speaker that nourished us in so many beautiful ways. And it turns out that she lives in San Diego, so it's going to be another dear friend to me. And you can't dream of these magic soul holders that come into your life, and when they do, and I just feel so blessed, because from the very first night she was right there, injecting herself in, even putting her stuff on my chair. There was always this cross, and she was sitting on the opposite side of the tent, but there was always this magnet that kept bringing us back together, and it was definitely meant to be. So as the ceremony was closed, what I find myself doing, because I was still deep in the medicine, is helping and midwifing everyone where they were at. And, one of my good sisters was deep in it still. So I went and sat down next to her, and the whole day had been cloudy, no sun at all. But in that moment, it peeks through the clouds, and there's one window there, and it shines right on her, because she was on my right hand side laying down, but it shined right through her chair and then to where I was sitting, so directly on me. But if she would sit up and feel it, it was for her too. And that's where the fans came in handy, because I started moving energy around everybody. And what I also noticed is that this fan, so you think a lot of times fans are I always have thought of them as moving density through, but actually it's moving light in. And especially with the peacocks, it was pulling light into where they were. So the way it looked is a lot around the crown, and moving up through the crown and bringing that light down into the body. And when I was doing that on her and moving the energy around her, she was able to sit up and feel that the rays of the sun move. And then from that, she opened up and was like, okay, I'm here. We had signed up to do the next thing, which was called EBO. And we had really no idea what this was, because you can't really research this, but essentially it's a a tradition, again, deep lineage tradition of clearing out all the remnants of stuff that's ready to leave your energetic body. And she does this through foods. So like, there was this list of foods that she told us that, we wouldn't be able to ingest for 3 days after this ceremony. And we would go one at a time. And we had to bring a change of clothes because after the ceremony, we would have to take a shower and rinse everything off, take off all of our clothes, give one piece of our clothing to the earth, and then get dressed. And then you couldn't ingest those foods that were used for 3 days. So Mina was like, I'm ready. If now is good a time as any. So she was the first of us to go and experience the Igbo. And the whole time, so I don't know, I feel like hours are passing. I don't know how much time is passing, but I'm thinking like, ooh, I'm very open right now. And I don't think I'm ready to have another person in my energy. And so that was like my mindset as I was like moving around, like talking, helping people, and feeling like, again, a midwife. But like the one of the hosts kept coming in and being like, okay, who's next? And by this time, like there are no other people, and we had signed up to do it this day. So I knew like, okay, and she had already brought all the food for my experience down to this amazingly beautiful, gorge, I guess I would call it, because it's in the middle of this forest and trees, and I'm like, okay. So I ask, being in this open of a state, how is it okay to go into this? And she said, actually, I think it's the best time to go into it because you're the most vulnerable. You can let go of the most, and you can receive her where she's at, the healer. So I'm like, okay. So I'm the last one that goes, and I don't even know how to walk at this point. Like, because my higher self is still fully in, and I have to have someone bring me to where I'm supposed to go, and I am barefoot walking on the dirt, and I'm in this white dress, and I remember walking out there, and like I have to wait my turn, so I'm waiting there on the earth, and I look up, and there's these rock formations up on this cliff above me, and as I am tuning into the rocks, all of a sudden this dragon layer opens up to me, and all these codes start going around this particular part of this cliff. And prior to going into this ceremony on the last day, I think it was in the sound bath or the breathwork ceremony, so I wasn't on anything. I could see that the honeycomb opened up around the space, and to me the honeycomb is the dragon scale, so I knew that the dragons were protecting the sacred land. Now, I have only seen that on my own land before, so I've never been in the presence of another land that holds these codes. But as I was standing there waiting for my turn with the Igbo ceremony, I look up and there's the dragon layer, and it's like, oh God, just like being in witness of such magic. It feels like, and not only that, but being conscious of it felt like, oh my goodness. And it turned out that the actual cliff itself looks like a dragon head, and then it has this like layer that goes deep in, and that's where the dragons are living. And I'm just like, wow. And then it's my turn. So I walk up, and basically she's saying that you're standing on this plastic, and she's saying you're gonna close your eyes the entire time, and you're gonna have your hands out, and you're supposed to receive whatever she puts in your hands and put your energy into this stuff, which is food products. So there was like popcorn, corn, cabbage, rice, beans. I think that's all. So she's singing this song and like moving the foods all over your hair, all over your eggs, all over your body. She would put stuff in your hands, you would squeeze it. And then while she moved that energy through your body, then you would put, again, my eyes were closed, so I don't know what the foods were, drop them in the bucket, then receive the next. And like, it was this kind of process over and over. And she's singing this most beautiful angelic song and just moving the energy through you, touching your body, like your arms, blessing you. And then after she does the whole process, she says, okay, open your eyes and look at me. And she's holding your hands, and she says, I want you to jump towards me and don't look back. And so and I kind of knew that this is like you're jumping into your new body, you're leaving the past behind, and you're not going back, you're not even looking backwards. So I do that and I move forward, and I did this leap into her arms, and then she says, "You hold a lot of light." And I was like, "Oh God, thank you." And you know what, all of my fears around letting someone else's energy into me, being that vulnerable, was a lesson in receiving again, and receiving the light that, her name is Anna Maria, and receiving the light that she is. And it felt like if I could pick in this life a mother of pure nurturing, it would have been her. She has like the most grounded, soul-filled body and arms, and just all of it. So you can feel like you can melt right into her. And I realized in that moment that was my own lesson of receiving even in that vulnerability. And I was so grateful. So then, because I'm the last person, I have to walk to this outdoor shower, and it had hot water at some point. But of course, for me, it's freezing cold because I'm the last one. But I know this is my lesson. Remember, I didn't go into the ocean at the beginning of this whole journey, and I knew that it's for me. I have to face my fear of cold and let it go. And so Ginger, she's the one that went before me. So she's outside, and I'm like, please walk me through because I'm still not even consciously there. I'm still like my higher self doing the washing. So she's like, okay, you're going to take your clothes off and put them on the hook. And then you're going to I'm going to get you a wash rag. You're going to dampen the wash rag and wash your body. And then like step by step, she's walking me through the exact process that I need to do. And I'm like, please don't leave me, because I would just be standing here and not knowing what to do. So I eventually get to the point where I have to put my head under the water. I decide I'm not washing my hair because I'm not going through that process. Just like let all the soap fall off of me. And then there's a hook with my clean clothes. I get the towel, and I'm just, yes, I get dressed somehow. And I make it my way back to the tent, and it turns out that they're about to serve dinner. So we decide that we're going to go for this nature walk up to the house to have dinner. And, we get up there, and I can only have a grape, a tomato, a carrot, and I think that's all I ate. And so with the Igbo, she says that you're not supposed to talk anymore. You're supposed to hold all of the stuff that you've taken in through ceremony, and all of the lessons and all of the amazing elixirs that have come into your body, and hold it sacred for 3 days. So from that point on, it was really a lesson in staying inward and really nourishing that part of myself, even to the point of when I got home, I didn't share the experience with Richard until the 3 days was up, because I wanted to honor all of the beautiful wisdom and traditions that were shared with us through this experience. So, I want to say something that came up after ceremony, because I just said the word. So you notice how people, when they're talking, there'll be pauses, and then the pause, it's a Well, Faith brought up to me through her brother, told her this, which I think is the most magical way to experience this. It sounds very similar, and this was his wisdom, so I'm just sharing it through this channel because I think it should be shared. But sounds so similar to om. And in that, our language being so close, that to the om is the sacred pause that lets more light in until the next thought is dropped down. So never again will I look at the as a negative thing. Like, why do I say so many times? It's just allowing more light in. And I want to share that with you, because when we go to the place of opening our throat, you have to allow what is meant to come through. And in that is the So yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, there's an again. This quote came to me. The greatest privilege of a human life is to become a midwife to the awakening soul in another person. And that was said by Plato. And if I had to sum up my experience with plant sound immersion, it would be this quote, because I saw a side of myself that I hadn't been allowed to share. Like, I think I midwife in this form through, the circle and through the podcast, but I had never done it in ceremony. And to see myself open up to it, and it felt so natural, and that I've done it so many times, and that it was even the souls that weren't ready to receive me. Like, there was one particular person, and I just put my energy on their spine, not touching them, just, and I was like, if she's ready to receive me, she'll turn around. And she did. And it was just a brief moment, but we got to have an exchange that made me know that the power of one person's soul being open, the power that it carries to midwife another souls into this experience is just a reminder of their own, is so immense. And I just felt so grateful for the opportunity and the container to see myself reflected in this experience. So this for me starts a new chapter. I saw so many knowings and understandings in my own process that, the part of me that has said so many times, I'm not ready, or can I do that? Or has departed. And when my 3 days was up, I told Richard that what came through is that I'm ready, and I'm ready to have people here and nurture people through their process. And that looks in physical reality, that looks like creating a deck that then I can put a yurt on and create a ceremony space in this beautiful land. And the only reason that I feel that readiness is because this work is so sacred, and it needs to be protected. And there are not many parts of the world that are protected by the dragons. And knowing that I have landed myself in this nest of that protection, I know that it needs to be shared with others. It needs to be it literally is too big of an energy for just me and Richard to hold. It needs to be open for others. And, throughout this year that we've lived here, I've hand selected people that I thought were ready to come through and feel it. But I know now that I need to open myself up for the healing of others and this magic. And seeing the owner of the land that we were on for this ceremony, and I did talk to her and ask her if she knew that the dragons were protecting, and she said yes. Her brother is actually a dragon keeper, and he shares the land with her. And it's like with that comes responsibility. You don't just land yourself into something like this for yourself, and I guess I've known this for a long time. It was this first lesson of receiving it for myself, but then understanding that it's meant for many, many others. And Richard said, finally, you see it. Because he always knew. He knew. And I just... I go through these processes in my own body that feel like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But this time that leap forward helped me to see that that person doesn't exist anymore. The one that is the unsure one, the one that isn't sure that she can hold a container of that size. But having these women come in and nurturing that experience together, I know changed their lives. And I want that for all of you. I want there to be a safe space where the healing can happen, but also the nurturing and the deep, it feels like the codes that are ready to be activated and held and seen. Because a lot of times, we can't see ourselves, and it's only through others' reflections that we can receive how beautiful we are as a soul, And I'm ready. So I'm going to read that quote again. The greatest privilege of a human life is to become a midwife to the awakening of the soul in another person. I don't imagine there's any other perfect words to sum up what this beautiful ceremony weekend showed me. And I want to say that if I hadn't released those anchors before I stepped into this space, I would not have been ready to meet that experience. So it is just with such deep, deep, deep gratitude that I want to say thank you to Judea, Yana, Anna Maria, Ceres, Leanne, Rosario, Nur, Ciara, and I hope I received everybody that I remember. And I want to say, like, the magic that's in that container is for everyone. And if it comes your way and if the timing feels right, don't deny it of yourself. You know, everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. But that calling and inner knowing is your soul speaking to you, and it just wants to become manifest in this reality. And God, I want to touch really quick on one other hurdle that I experienced in going into this container, which was the Santo Daime religion. And what I saw in the medicine is the word religion is used in our language for many reasons, but it's mainly to be legal in this country. It is so much deeper than a religion. And it kind of makes me just laugh even thinking that that's the word that's used, because it is like, and they described it as a mystery school. I felt it as this spiral of deep wisdom that for some magical reason, they are allowing people outside of their tribe, their soul family, their, you know, lineage to experience this magic. And in that, I hold such regard for honestly, for the opening of the planet, because they wouldn't be sharing this if it wasn't time. And Yana said that the reason they moved into this iteration of the religion and of the teachings is because there is an evolution to what they've learned. There is an opening for a sacred sister circle, and which is what they created. And I know eventually they want to get to a place of allowing men into the circle, but right now it's nurturing the females and the women so that they can see the powerful beings that we are. And I just it's so hard to put into words, the magic, but it isn't a religion. And every part of my brain that thought that and had these kind of like reservations, all of them were blown away within the first day. I was like, oh, okay. We hold so much stigmata to certain words based on what our conditioning is. And if we can just open up and receive when it's time to receive, the magic and the codes that this group carries it's just an honor to witness. And I'm so grateful to have this place to share it with you. And please reach out to me if you ever have any questions regarding my experience there. And I would say whenever the next one is announced, if at all possible, if your soul is ready to open up to that next level, this is the container. This feels like the most magical container that you could find. So with that, I thank you so much for being here and witnessing me and this full unfolding. And the thing is, with medicine, it just keeps unfolding. So I know there'll be many more codes to share as I move forward. As what happens is that it lands in your heart and it takes time for the mind to understand. But these are just the ones that I have grasped to this moment. And thank you for being here, and I love you.